Hey there, hey, it is Michelle, your big sis with Brilliant Quest. And today I'm going to be telling you about how I finally started getting some success when I stopped trying to be brave and fearless. And so I'm going to be giving you some of the major points that I learned and that you can quickly use to turn life on its head when it's trying to beat you down. All right, so this is how we do it. I'm going to give you my top points, then we're going to go through it, and hopefully we're going to leave you better than we found you. So here we go. So when you are facing a lot of fears, a lot of obstacles, a lot of insurmountables, you can fall into this hopelessness. But instead of trying to work from a place of being fearless and brave, you can still get things done. And so these are some of the things that I did that I'm going to help share with you. Okay, so the first thing is, it's kind of counterintuitive, but what you're going to do is you're going to transform your fear into motivation instead. And we talk a lot about motivation, and so I'm going to be talking about the motivation that comes from within and why it's so important. Okay, and then the next one is we're going to embrace courage instead of confidence. And if you'll notice, there's kind of a theme to this where we're taking the counterintuitive of, everyone tells you to be confident, to be brave, to be fearless. No, there are going to be times in your life when it is scary, when you don't feel like you are qualified, and when fear seems insurmountable. Okay, and so then the next one is we're going to, instead of try to beat down the inner critic, we're going to work with them. There is a reason why you have an inner critic. All right, so you know how we do. Let's get on into it and get going. So the first one is and I'm looking at my notes. Y'all know when I look down, I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so the first one is transform fear into motivation. Well, how, Michelle? How do you do that? Glad you asked, even if you didn't. Four things I want to say about that, and that is to use the motivators that help you to focus more on the motivation than the fear. Okay, and so here are some of the big ones that you can use that will accomplish this, and that is to prove them wrong. Now, they have many studies that show when people focus on changing how they are perceived by others, it is one of the strongest motivators in the realm of why. Shout out Simon Sinek, of why you're doing something. People try to be cute with it. I'm doing it for my family, for my kids, to give back to the community. Yeah, I'm not saying you're lying, but if you really want to get something done, if you really want to stop being stymied by fear, find a why that motivates you to push past how others might be perceiving you. If you're feeling shame, guilt, embarrassment, self-pity, and when I say the self-pity, I'm not talking about the woe is me pity party. No, I am talking about the self-pity that comes when you are taking on what you think others are feeling about you. When you tell yourself these false narratives of they think I'm a loser, they think I'm this, instead of being weighed down by that, oh no, we're going to use that and flip it. It's where you turn the negative into the positive. It's something where that motivation of self rehabbing, of giving yourself a new adjective to describe who you are to others is a motivator that will fuel you. And it is one that a lot of times has some fear in it, where you are driven to not prove them right, to not be the person that they say you are. The people who whisper behind your back, the bless your hearts that are not nice. Oh, bless her heart, she's still trying to do that. Oh, bless her heart. Those types of things. Proving them wrong is huge. And then under that same one, chip on your shoulder. If you feel like, yeah, I wish you would, So I've heard people talk about, the F around and find out kind of thing. Well, this would be in the chip on your shoulder kind of situation. It's kind of where you've had enough. And I'm not trying to equate you to a caged animal, but I am saying what happens when you put a frightened animal into a corner? Yeah, they come out swinging. They come out swinging. Yeah. And so you can use this as a catalyst to help you get motivated. And then there was this old commercial where this actor would put a battery on his shoulder, and he was known for, like, I wish you would, kind of attitude. And he put the battery on his shoulder. He was like, come on, I dare you to knock it off. And so that's the next one. Be daring, dare greatly. And so being able to transform fear into motivation is going to help you to take the attention off of the fear and put it on to all of the changes needed for you, your internal, who you are, to be shown externally. Now, I could talk about some other things. I did a review of a book Clear Thinking by Shane Parrish. And in the section where he talks about the ego, he talks a little bit about this. And he gives an example of a person who is ego driven to make mistakes because their ego is driving them to prove others wrong, meaning that they don't believe that people can see their potential, that people are showing them proper respect. And I'm going to say that when you're transforming fear into motivation, there is a fine line. Do not get into the ego where the ego is driving you. Instead, stay humbled, stay centered, and stay focused to work consistently on avoiding the traps of succumbing to fear, and instead using these things as a fuel to keep you going, whether people ever see you the way you want to see them or not, but it still works. Okay. So the next one is you want to work against fear by not trying to be fearless. I know that might sound like, what does she mean? Working against fear without being fearless. What I want you to do is I want you to do it scared. Doing it scared means that you are forcing yourself to take imperfect action. This is where I call it the Barney Fife approach. Now, Barney Fife was a character played by Don Knotts. Well, it was before my time, but you can always, catch a good old Mayberry on reruns. And Barney Fife was the deputy under the sheriff, and he was a scaredy cat, and he would be trembling and all of this. But one thing Barney Fife would do, he would do it scared, and he would get it done. And then the funniest, thing about after he did it, he would do this and say, yeah, I just did, and so his confidence zooms. But the thing is he's doing it despite not feeling like he can do it. And so doing it scared is a way to work against fear and to cripple it, in that you're going to do it whether you're fearful or not. And usually you will get the same benefit as Barney Fife by gathering this confidence after the fact. The next one is you want to work through the fear to get to the never will I ever. And this one, and all of these have come from not only me going through them, but me seeing them and learning from others how they were able to do this. Because on the one hand, people try to give you the best. They want you to be strong. They want you to be fearless and brave and all of this. But whether you are wired this way or not, when I say wired this way, meaning that fear will overtake you, you can still get stuff done. Now, in another video where I talked about how shock shook me and stunned me, and I started realizing that was my fear response, that I get frozen for a minute, but then, I come back to life, if you will. And in that video, I talked about the 4 types of fear responses you can have. You can have the fighter, you can have the flight person that runs, you can have the fawner who tries to talk their way out of the situation, or you can have folk like me who get frozen. And it does, I was like, it's like the worst one. But I started to do what I'm asking you to do. I started asking myself, how can I reframe this? How can I use this with me? How can I work with it and against it? Asking those types of questions is really going to help you to find the sweetness out of every situation, whether it appears negative or not. I believe that everything we encounter is for a reason. And so, we have those different things. Okay. So with that, working through, what you're doing is you're having your Scarlett O'Hara moment. Scarlett O'Hara was the main character from Gone with the Wind. And she was a Southern Belle, and this was happening around the Civil War. And Scarlett was reduced from being a pampered princess, Southern princess, to scrounging in the ground for potatoes that were left over from a harvest. And she has this moment, and this is the part in the movie where you can see it. It's in the book too, but in the movie where she holds that little gnarled potato up, dirty and all of this, and she's got dirt and everything. And, it's kind of like to her lowest point. And she says, as long as I live, I'll never be hungry again. And that's where I started having my quote unquote Scarlett O'Hara moments. When I got to the point where I was like, enough. I am still scared. It's not going away, but I am going to work through the fear till I get to the never. And so you have examples like, I will never be poor again. I will never be humiliated. I'll never be shamed. I'll never be embarrassed. I'll never be unprepared. Any of those things that cause that visceral, immediate reaction, like, ugh, you can use those emotions to help you power through the fear. Okay. So the next one is you want to choose how you overcome instead of deciding to be fearless. Now, that's saying a lot, and I'll just tell you, when we are confronted with things, we can do a lot of different reactions. We can have a yes, a no, or a maybe. Yes and no are decision-based, and they're so powerful because they cut off the other one. They're so powerful that your body, before you make a decision, split second before you make that decision, your body is already activated to do whatever the decision has decided. And so with decisions, it's a really, really, really powerful energy. And like I said, it's so powerful that your body is even in on it before your mind. And too many times we couch what we're supposed to be doing by trying to make a decision about it. But you know what? There's a third option, and it's called the maybe. And the maybe is where choices live. You see, choices are multiple choice. You have multiple ones of them. And so what that means is your commitment to the choice is not as strong as that decision of yes or no. You see, with the maybe, it gives you room to wiggle, room to have different ways of approaching it, room to test something out without the fear that you only get one shot. And if you don't make it, you fail. So we don't want that. So with that, if you are being stymied by fear, if you have not had movement past the time that I'm in a rut, I'm stuck, instead of trying to decide on a yes or a no, decide on a maybe, because the choices are going to have options. But you want to be able to do it scared and to jump in with a decision where you've cut off all your other options and you got to make it, or you don't, or you can't make it kind of situation might be a little too much. And another thing about choices, especially when you are working within the fear, is that they bring you lessons and they lessen your failure rate. All right. So I'm going to recap the transforming fear into motivation, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Okay. All right. So under the transforming fear into motivation, what you want to do is you want to use chips on your shoulders, proving people wrong. You want to work with daring greatly and doing it scared. Well, that's the next one. And that is to work against the fear, where you're able to understand that I don't have to be fearless. I don't have to be brave. I just got to do it scared. I got to Barney Fife my way through this, trembling as I may be. But when I persevere, I am going to gain the confidence that, yeah, I did that. And, the next one is you want to work through the fear to get to the never. That's where you have your Scarlett O'Hara moment. That's where you realize that you never want to be in this position again. And thus that becomes the catalyst by which you work. You will never go hungry again. You will never be ashamed, embarrassed. You will never, even if you want to play fear, you'll never be fearful again. You can work through that, but you're doing it while the fear is still there. And you want to choose to overcome instead of choosing to be fearless. And that's where you're using choices instead of decisions to help you go, because you're fearful of failure a lot of times, and that's why it's there. And if you take that part away, that could you really fail? Could you really fail? That means that you have more options, more at the bats, if you will, to work it through. And with each one of the choices, you gain a lesson, and thus you lessen the rate of failure. All right, so let's get into the second part. And that is, I want you to embrace courage instead of confidence. Embrace courage instead of confidence. Now, I've done another video where I talked about the pathway to confidence is through courage, and that still stands here. But what I want to say is that one of the things about courage when you're starting, courage requires action over bravery. Now, yes, bravery is a component of courage, but remember Barney Fife? When you take action, when you do it scared, that is courageous. When you continue to be courageous, once you got some wins over your belt, or once you've completed successfully, you start to get confident. Remember, Barney Fife would do it scared, he would tremble, but once it was done, he would stick his chest out like a little scrawny peacock, because he was skinny. Stick his chest out and be like, yeah, I did it, and you can use that. It is totally fine, because the goal is to not get stuck in a rut. The goal is to not get bound in your mind where you cannot move. The goal is to get yourself out of PTSD, if you need to, from recurring thoughts and feelings of defeat. So we're going to do these. Okay. So the next part with this, when you're talking about courageous is the requirement, is you want to understand that you want to be able to do intentional actions that have direction and that don't require bravery. They simply need to be activated, because what ends up happening, it's kind of like when Michelangelo talked about creating David, the great statue. He did not talk about taking this stone that no one said was useful anymore. What he did is he said that the stone told him what was in it, and all he did was remove the excess. And so when you're doing courageous instead of brave or confident, allow the thing that you are accomplishing, or the goal that you want to achieve, or the process Yeah, that's actually better. The process that you must endure or create to endure, allow the reward, the outcome to tell you what it is, how it looks. And then you start chipping away at the external, understanding that your goal, your desire, your prize, your reward is in there. You're just removing all the excess. And because of that, you're able to go forth and be courageous because you got help. Confidence is where, and it's all about positioning. It's all about how you position your mind. Confidence is where instead of you having the faith and the belief that the internal, whatever you're trying to get is calling to you, confidence says, no, I'm going to create it. I'm going to take this rock and I'm going to turn it into something different. And there's nothing wrong with that if you've got the experience to do it. But when you don't, when you are frozen with fear, when you are going the opposite direction because you have uncertainty and you don't know what's going on, just be courageous to start chipping away at the excess. And one of the things that has helped me tremendously in this is that it has released me from having to know every single thing about it before I start. And so using this is going to actually help you to be more productive because there's some uncertainty involved. And I'm going to be talking about that in other videos a little bit more. And it's worth it for you to get that. So the second one is you want to embrace courage instead of confidence. And confidence is going to come. So I'm not telling you not to be confident. It will come. The more courageous you are, the more you show up, it will come. And again, courage does not on the front end require any bravery or confidence. What it does require is for you to take intentional action and, to do this action with feeling and purpose. And remember Michelangelo, where he talked about this famous big block of stone, expensive, even during that time, that had been quote unquote ruined. And what he did is instead of being confident that he could turn this stone into something, he instead was courageous enough to allow the stone to show him what was in it, what was beneath all of the imperfections and all of the excess. And that's what he worked toward. He worked to release David, if you will, from within the stone. And it worked. Okay. So here's the next one. And the next one is we all have inner critics. And instead of trying to beat them down, working with an inner critic when you're trying to defeat it is like when you take a beach ball and you put it in the pool and you're trying to keep it underwater. That thing pops out, it takes over, it will drown you, it will do all those things. And so what I've had to learn over the years is that instead of trying to work against the critic, work with it. Now, you notice I did not say believe it. I said work with it. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put it through the paces. So here we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to reframe the narrative of what this inner critic is telling you to make it obviously false. That entails you asking yourself, your inner critic, things like, what about me makes this true? What makes it blatantly false? Now, here's a big one, because like I said, your inner critic can have you tore up, turned around, inside out, and don't know which way is up. So what I've done is, in how I have started working with the inner critic, is I started interviewing it like a journalist would, using the what, how, when, where, why, all of those different. I know I'm forgetting one because there's 6, there's 5 W's and an H, but I'll put it in the notes or wherever it is. Okay. Anyway, here are some others. And these I tried to pick some powerful ones to get you to understand how you can interview your inner critic and how you can work with it to actually get momentum and get going instead of being browbeat by the fear. And that is, when is this story that you're telling me true? Okay. And not only that, provide me with some evidence instead of just feelings. That one, oh my gosh, when your inner critic has to try to give you tangible evidence of when this was true and not just throw at you hormonal imbalances of feelings, that's when you start to see the truth. The next one is, why is this relevant? Why is this top of my mind? What makes this so high priority that it needs to be top of my mind? And then demand of your inner critic to answer the question. The next one, what is the thinking pattern that got you to come to this conclusion, internal critic? Is it accurate? Is it proven? Is it factual? Or is it just stinking thinking? All right. The next one, how can I use the narrative that you're spinning for this to better me or to make me different or healed in a better or a greater way? And then the next one, and this is not the last one. I'm just giving you some of the ones that I use so that I can go through and work with my inner critic. Because, the one thing that I like about inner critic is they are critical. And once you start molding the conversation that you have with that inner voice, and you start to put it through its paces with the what, when, why, how, who, where, you'll find that the inner critic will actually start helping you. And this last one is that I have here for you is, who says this is correct? Who? And even if your inner critic starts flashing faces or giving you things, you can actually go and look and go back through these paces. You can be like, what about this makes this true? That might have been true for them. Is it true for me? I don't think so. What makes this blatantly false? And I'm just reading back through the ones that I'm giving you to use on your own. What makes this true? Provide evidence and not just feeling. Why is this relevant? Why is this top of my mind? What is the thinking pattern that got you to come up with this story? And how does it make me better? How is it factual? Or is it just stinking thinking? How can I use this to better myself or make a difference in my life, to be healed, etc. And who says that this is correct? All right. So I am going to give you a recap of how you can stop trying to be brave and fearless and do this instead. The first thing is we're going to transform fear into motivation. We can do that by first and foremost taking it personal. We can seek to prove them, whoever you want them to be, wrong. We can have a chip on our shoulder where you're like, I dare you, fear, and we can dare greatly. The next one is we're going to embrace courage instead of trying to be confident. And we're going to Barney Fife our way through this, where we're going to use intentional action, yes, to work our way through. We're going to do it scared. All right. Then we're going to work with that inner critic. Remember, we're going to interview that critic like a journalist would. We're going to use our what, where, who, why, when, and hows. And we're going to qualify the stories, the narratives that are being told to us. We're going to ask that the inner critic couch them not in feelings, but in facts, in truth. How is this truthful? How is this blatantly false? We're going to ask it, how is this correct? We're going to put it through its paces so that your inner critic, and that's another thing about this. When you do this, when you start to interview your inner critic with critical questions and you demand that you get some resolution, some answer, you start training your inner critic to stop having lazy, low vibrational, or stinking thinking. Your inner critic is there actually to kind of help you. It's not there to just demonize your situation and make it fearful. It's actually there for a reason. It is there for you to turn the orb all around to see all of the facets, all of the points of view. And so don't let it just run wild. Make it work for the narratives that it brings you. And you're going to be amazed at how much you uncover and unearth of fears that have been unchecked for too long, that are totally false, of old limiting beliefs, of old defense mechanisms that no longer help you. Now they're harming you. And the list goes on and on. So what I want you to do, you guessed it, is I want you to watch this next video. Don't forget, check the links in the description for if you want to do one-on-ones with me, any books or resources that I mentioned in the videos, or if you just say, Michelle, I like what you're doing and I want to help support the channel. There are various ways to do that. You can do donations through PayPal and Stripe. You can do direct through, if you're stateside, you can do direct through CashApp, Venmo, and Zelle. So thank you so much for watching. Now I want you to go on and I want you to watch this next video on your brilliant quest. And this is Michelle, your big sis with Brilliant Quest. I'm going to see you sooner than later. Bye.